Hello and welcome to this edition of Dirt Talk with Drake York, and I've got famous videographer Dean Mills on the show. Dean, it's good to have you.
It's good to be here. I would say infamous. it's more like it, not famous. But
Today's show will be presented by Hunt's Race World and Bill McAnally Racing. Dean, famous videographer, you said infamous. Dean, what was your first introduction to the sport of racing?
Basically got started going to Placerville Speedway when I was 8. My dad crewed on a race car for a guy that ended up winning the 1980 Placerville Speedway track championship. His name was Bob Briggs. And yeah, my dad went from a crew guy to actually racing. He ran for 4 seasons, and we owned a car for a 5th season. And my dad won one super stock feature event in his entire career, so that was kind of a great moment. And I just, I fell in love with it the moment I saw it. Some people racing talks to, and some people, it doesn't. And I was one, it spoke to me. From the moment I saw race cars, I was hooked.
How did you get started in the videography business?
Well, one of my dad's crew guys was a attorney in law, and he owned some video equipment, and he started shooting video of my dad, and that was in the '81 season. And I took an interest to it right away. And in 1982, I remember going to the Gold Cup. It was my first Gold Cup, and then I saw the video of that race done by a company called Matco Video Productions, which was also MVP, oddly enough. And I saw the video of it, and I don't know, it's what I wanted to do. And I kind of figured out, at the age of 13, what I wanted to do with my life. So by the time I was 14, I was shooting video, and I was, not very good at it, but I was better than the guy that was, that had been shooting, my dad. And he just basically hired me and gave me half of the profits, to go and shoot the video and sell it, and that's how I got started. May 5th of 1984 was my first ever race.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You remember the date.
Yeah, the anniversary's coming up. It'll be, 33 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But this is my 34th season of shooting racing. So.
Have you ever recorded events other than racing? Because you're mostly known for video and racing.
Yeah, I've done some weddings, and I shot out of a helicopter one time shooting a boat race, that kind of thing. And but I pretty well stay, focused on sprint car racing or, auto racing in general.
You now have your own company, Mills Video Productions, but in the past, who have you worked for?
Well, these days I work for everybody. Of course I do some NASCAR for TV. I've done mostly truck races. And it's hard to break into that because it's such a cliquey kind of thing. They have their shooters, and it's only when like football season rolls around and somebody's got a conflict and they need an extra guy to come in, and I get to do that, and it pays real well. But these days I work for Loud Pedal, I work for Dirt Vision, I work for all the major companies, Racing Boys, whoever will pay me to do it. I call myself a mercenary these days because this is what I do for a living, and I have to go where the money is. So, but over the years, I've shot for everybody from Diamond P to NHRA. I've done a little bit of drag racing stuff, and pretty much been fortunate enough to do it all.
How many races do you think you go to per year?
Well, it's not as many, by design, it's not as many as it used to be. I know I did 100 races a year, easy. I didn't used to count. but I 100 races a year for 11 years. 100 was down. It was probably a low number back in those days when I was living in the Midwest. But last year I didn't count how many races, but I venture to say it was under 80, and that was by design. And I could be totally off on that, and it had close to 90. But these days, I'm a stay-at-home dad during the week, and auto racing videographer on the weekends, and try to stay a little closer to home. So my best year was 2014. I did 134 races. Yeah, had 16 rainouts, and it was the first year I ever counted how many races I did. And then in 2015, I said I'd moved here, and I basically said I didn't want to do 100 races. So I had a nice modest schedule of about 80, and then as the season went on, it kept growing and growing, and I actually hit 100 on the last night race, Turkey night. So actually, the DuQuoin race.
How do you decide where to go for a race to video it?
Well, these days it's dictated by who's willing to pay, and for example, last weekend I was double booked. Originally had World of Outlaws of Paris on my schedule on Saturday night, and Tyler Shaw of Fast Four Media, who I also do some work with, he was doing the first ever SCCT race, and he asked me to come. So I basically passed off my race to somebody else, to the Loud Pedal guys, so they could go. They were going to be there anyway, covering the CRA race, so they covered the Outlaws for me, and I shot Antioch. And the reason that is because it's the same amount of money. I can go 85 miles from home, or after being in Hanford the night before, and for Outlaws, or I can, I can be 5 or 7 hours from home, and it made sense. Would I prefer be at the Outlaws and USAC CRA? Yes, but I made a business decision. You gotta go where you can make the most money, and locally was where I could make the most money. So that's how that's what dictates it. I have to make smart financial decisions these days.
What's the biggest race you've ever filmed?
The biggest race I've ever shot? Boy, I hadn't even thought. Let's see. I mean, all the short track races. It depends on your, are you speaking short track or are you talking
ever?
That's a hard question.
Well, you've shot a lot of races also.
I have, in the thousands, and I don't have any idea how many races that is. Biggest race I've ever shot. I guess it'd have to be some NASCAR race or something, but I don't really, not really one of those people who looks at past accomplishments, past things I've done. I kind of am a live for the moment or looking forward kind of guy. So I don't really have, a really great answer for you on that one. Sorry. I wish I did. Maybe I could.
You're all good.
Maybe I could think about it and come up with something later. But and you know what'll happen is I'll be thinking about it and I'll be like, oh yeah, I should have said that. So.
What's your favorite event you go to all year?
Well, the race I don't want to miss these days, I think it would be the Louis Vermeil Classic, Calistoga. I love that event. It's just it's great atmosphere. Great racing. You get 2 divisions. Calistoga's really turned into a jewel these days. With the new dirt and the new lights and and all the improvements that David Abreu made for the racetrack, and it's just a well promoted event, and it's very enjoyable. Trophy Cup's fun, you know. I'm gonna get to, for the first time ever, get to go to the King's Royal. I've never done that because I've always been at Sprint Week, and I'm really looking forward to that. I got to figure out where I'm gonna stay, but you know, I really kind of want to take in the whole atmosphere of it. So, you know, I've been fortunate enough to go to the World 100 at Eldora, and that is an event. Like, that's a fun event to be at. Stock cars, you know, late models, but which I grew up doing. You know, that's how I started. My dad racing stock cars, and your dad started racing stock cars.
Yeah, he did.
He did. I have video of it.
Ooh,
then you know, I gravitated towards sprint cars, and that's what I did. So anyway, you know, the race I enjoy the most, I think, is probably the Louis Vermeil.
yes, we go to that race every year.
Yeah,
Fun event as well.
it is. Wait till you can do the wine tasting. You
I'm
got
sure-
a few years before.
I'm
you do
sure my
that.
parents are looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
You used to live in Indiana. You mentioned it earlier. How long did you live in Indiana?
I lived there 10 years, and there are aspects of it I do miss. I don't miss the winters, and I don't miss the humidity of the summer. But the racing, you can't beat it, and it's kind of mecca for what I do. You know, if I was living there still, I would be, you know, a very busy guy. I would be, you know, doing 100+ races a year and making a good living, and it's cheaper there, and everything's, you know, it's just a better scenario for a guy like me to be there. But you know, I got married and had my daughter, and decided to move here and raise her here next to my mom, and so it's important for me to be here, and so I'm trying to carve out a living, you know, with half the races basically.
You've been videoing races for a long time, as we talked a little bit about earlier, but what's the craziest thing you've ever done to how to get a perfect shot?
I've climbed up on top of buildings that, you know, were not safe, you know. I've hung myself off of buildings. I've done it all, you know. It's really, again, it comes down to whether or not you know, I don't really look backwards much, and sometimes I'll, you know, I'm posting old videos to my website, going through and archiving everything I've ever done to my website, and I'm working on some footage that I shot, and I'm like, you remember, you know, what you've done, what you did to get that shot. You know, the other day at Hanford, I was there for the outlaw race, and they've condemned their roof, so they don't allow us up there anymore, and I had to pull this big heavy box up, and I shot on top of it, but it was too high for where I was, so I had to shoot under the overhang of the awning, and so I'm banging my head off a beam the whole time and ducking below it to see, you know, the World of Outlaws going around trying to shoot under it, and it took a little getting used to, but I did it, and it came out okay. But I've done it all. Like, I've done some crazy things, and, you know, there have been some really awkward places I've shot. I've shot in condemned buildings, and, you know, nearly got thrown out of Terre Haute one time when I was a place that I wasn't supposed to be. Just I do whatever it takes to get the shot.
At places like Silver Dollar, you're on the roof, and also a lot of other places. Explain where you stand, and are you afraid to fall when you're up there?
You don't think about it, and I've become accustomed to it. honestly, Silver Dollar, I don't understand why they haven't done something to make that safer. Because we are literally 2 feet from death. You know, if something happened and I tripped or whatever, you could just fall right off off this building and land on somebody and kill them. And you know, I'm really surprised they haven't done something about it. But it's the place we shoot, and you just get used to it. You put it out of your mind and you go and do your job. That's kind of.
What's the hardest track to record at because of like obstructed viewing or some other cause?
My least favorite is also one of my favorite tracks. Tulare has so many poles in the way of the shot. It's not conducive to shooting good video. Invariably, if a car stops, it's behind a pole, and so that's one that comes right off the top of my head. I mean, that's really the one, that I would say. I wish there was some place to shoot that we didn't have all the obstructions.
What's your favorite racing era and why?
Well, they're all unique. I feel like I've lived these different lives within a life, if I had to say, I mean, I loved, the old days at Placerville and then at Chico, back in the 80s and the 90s and then I did a 10-year stretch with the SCRA, the now defunct SCRA series, which was probably my favorite. I think I enjoyed that even more so than my USAC, my 10 years or 11 years with USAC, because of the camaraderie of it. USAC was great. That's a close second, I think, but you have these different eras and they all kind of define your life at the time, and I look back on that as probably the SCRA days from about 94 to 2003, 10 years, was probably the most enjoyable. Good racing was great, and the people were great, and there was a club racing, and it was nationally recognized, and I was making good money and living in LA, and that was really good.
You've seen a lot of drivers race throughout the years, but what's the craziest move you've ever seen a driver make?
The craziest move. I've seen a couple of them that you just kind of shake your head at. I wasn't there the night that Tim Kading decided to spear Andy Forsberg with his race car at Chico. I don't know if you remember that.
I think I might have been waiting a couple years to be born.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Yeah, maybe. I don't know if you've seen that on YouTube. I just. What are you thinking, Tim? But I once saw Kevin Swindell tie up with another car. It was Chris Wyndham, and he kind of got nose to nose. He's trying to keep it fired and keep it going so he's not involved in the yellow, and he actually climbs up on top of him, and there's, he's on the car and still trying to monster truck over him. And Chris actually had a tire mark on his helmet from it.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was as crazy as I've ever seen. Darren Clayton doing 360s and levitating, basically. That's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. He actually got the car off the ground and it's just basically still rotating.
Oh, that's crazy.
And yeah.
I've never heard of that stuff. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, those are crazy things.
What's your favorite part about owning your business, Mills Video Productions?
Oh, I really enjoy the work. It's a lot of work and not a lot of pay, especially these days. It's real hard to make a living here on the West Coast doing what I did full time, in the Midwest. But I'd say, just documenting the races is. Still, my moment is in. I've said this for years. Is me, my camera, and 24 race cars doing what they do and trying to shoot the perfect race, which doesn't. It's like running a perfect race. It doesn't happen. You always screw up a corner or something. Don't hit your marks or whatever. So, that the challenge of that is, it still excites me. I don't even know why, but it does. I love what I do, and I've always loved what I do, and I kind of set out early knowing what I wanted to do with my life. But how do you make a living videotaping race cars, or you just keep at it and you roll with the times and you figure out a way. And if you want something bad enough, you figure it out.
You talked about at the beginning of the show your dad racing at Placerville.
Mm-hmm.
During that time period when you were young, did you ever think to race, or did you ever want to race?
Yeah, I thought I did. But it's just like anything. And like I said, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. And in my mind's eye, I wanted to race, but I chose, to be on the other side of the fence. And all my friends that wanted to race, they raced, So the answer to the question is I didn't want it bad enough. That really, if you want to boil it down to why I didn't, it's because I didn't want it bad enough. I wanted to race. You want to get out there and do it and enjoy it and have fun and whatever, and be competitive. But I didn't want it bad enough. That's the bottom line.
You've seen drivers come up like Kyle Larson, Rico Abreu, come up to be some of the best drivers in all of America and the world. Now, today, who do you see as the next big superstar?
Well, I don't know that we'll see anybody quite the likes of Kyle Larson. He's the greatest young talent. He's not even young anymore. I mean, he is, but he's the greatest talent I've ever seen. I've seen him do things that you just shouldn't be able to do in a race car. You shouldn't be able to just show up at the Milwaukee Mile and sit on the pole having never run a Silver Crown car. And people talk about the things he's done, like going to Eldora for the first time and being, winning all 3 nights or all 3 divisions of the Silver or the 4 Crown, and that was really cool. And knowing the circumstances that led to that day, Kyle woke up late and basically took his seat, went over to the Hoffman car, stuck it in, and went racing. And never even put a wheel on the place and just killed him. But today, he's got a good shot at making something of himself, as Buddy Kofoid. I didn't, just like Kyle. You keep hearing about this kid, and I don't want to hear about him. I want him to show me, And he's shown me. He's got a great understanding. He's got great car control. He understands how to win races. He's just young and he's still learning. But he's the youngest winner in California sprint car history. At 14, and had 2 victories at the age of 14. Nobody's ever done that. And he's got good equipment behind him. And if he gets an opportunity, he could do some things. I'd be interested to see what he'd do on pavement, or that's the thing that separated Larson, is he got on pavement and he was good right away, and made something of himself, and Toyota picked him up, and boom, 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 it's good. It's just it all happened so quick, and we lost out on Kyle really quick in this sport, which is really a shame. But he's making a good living and he's giving back, and that's important. Yeah, I get to see him race at Placerville in 2 weeks. I'm excited about
2 weeks.
He's going to run that SCCT race
on
Easter
cool.
weekend. So
now I have to go back to Placerville again.
Yeah, him and Rico will both be there for that race, so I'm excited about that.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, buddy. It was nice doing this. And I want to say, it's great seeing a young guy so interested in doing something like this, and I encourage you to keep doing it. The sport needs, you know, young guys like you who aren't just in the seats. They're, you know, racing cars. They're excited about, you know, being on the other end of it, and I encourage you to keep at it and keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Dean.
All right.
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap up our show today.